The envelope trembled in Zara Morgan's hands as she stood in her kitchen, staring at the document that would change everything. Not the divorce papers, those would come later. This was a bank statement, one she wasn't supposed to see. $437,000. She whispered to her empty house. The granite countertop felt cool against her palm as she steadied herself. Outside, rain pattered against windows, framing the picturesque view of the Seattle skyline. A view she'd once believed justified the exorbitant mortgage. The house was quiet except for the rhythmic ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the foyer, a wedding gift from Ethan's parents. Her husband's text glowed on her phone screen. Working late again. Don't wait up. Zara reached for the bottle of Cabernet on the counter, poured herself a glass, and took a long sip. Then she opened her laptop and created a new folder. She named it Escape Fund. 6 months earlier, you need to sign these. Ethan Morgan slid the papers across their dining table, not bothering to look up from his phone. Zara paused, fork midway to her mouth. What are they? Just the refinance documents for the house. Interest rates dropped. We can save almost $800 a month. His fingers continued tapping on his screen. Zara set her fork down and pulled the stack toward her. I thought we agreed to discuss major financial decisions together. Ethan finally looked up, his expression a familiar mixture of impatience and condescension. At 43, he remained strikingly handsome, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, blue eyes that could still make her heart skip when they softened, which happened less and less these days. It's not major, Zara. It's a no-brainer. We're not taking cash out or extending the term. Zara flipped through the documents, scanning the pages. 15 years of marriage to a financial advisor had taught her enough to understand most of it. What's this about an insurance policy? Standard requirement. Nothing changed there. Something in his tone made her pause. After 15 years together, she knew when he wasn't telling her everything. But confronting him now would only lead to another argument, and she was too tired for that tonight. I'll read through them and sign tomorrow, she said. They need to be submitted by noon. Then I'll read through them tonight. Ethan sighed dramatically and stood up, leaving his half-eaten dinner. Fine. I'm going to the gym. After he left, Zara sat alone in their dining room, surrounded by the trappings of what looked like Success custom furniture. Original artwork, the view of the Seattle skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The silence pressed in on her. She'd met Ethan right after college, when she was 23 and full of ambition. She'd just landed her first position as an assistant curator at the Seattle Art Museum, a stepping stone to the career she'd dreamed of. Ethan, 7 years older and already successful, had swept her off her feet. Somewhere along the way, her dreams had become footnotes. The prestigious curator position she'd once pursued morphed into freelance art consultation work that she could do on the side. Their social calendar filled with Ethan's clients and colleagues, leaving little room for her artist friends. The house, the cars, the vacations, all chosen primarily to project the image of success that Ethan's career demanded. And now, at 38, Zara Morgan found herself living someone else's life. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend. Leela, still on for coffee tomorrow? Zara smiled. Leela had been her anchor through the gradual erosion of her marriage. The one who noticed the changes in Zara before she admitted them to herself. Absolutely. She replied, I need it more than ever. The next day at Emerald City Coffee, tucked away in a corner booth, Leela watched Zara stir her latte absently. He's cheating, Leela said bluntly. Zara's head snapped up. What? Ethan. All the signs are there. Late nights, weekend conferences, the emotional distance, being secretive with his phone. Leela counted off on her fingers. And you've been avoiding the obvious for months. Zara's first instinct was to defend him, a reflex honed by years of explaining away his behavior to friends and family. Instead, she set down her spoon. I know, she said quietly. What do I do with that knowledge? Leela reached across the table and squeezed her hand. That depends. Do you want to save the marriage or save yourself? The question hung in the air between them. I don't know who I am anymore. Lay. Everything's been about Ethan for so long. Zara's voice cracked. His career, his goals, his image. Then maybe it's time to find out who Zara is again. That night, Zara waited until Ethan was in the shower before picking up his phone. He'd grown careless lately, leaving it unlocked more often. She found nothing incriminating in his texts or emails, which didn't surprise her. Ethan was too smart for that dot, but in his photo gallery, she found a folder labeled Properties. Inside were pictures of a sleek, modern waterfront cabin on Lake Washington that she'd never seen before. The most recent photo showed Ethan standing on the deck with his arm around a woman tall, blonde, maybe early 30s. They were both smiling. Zara's stomach tightened. She quickly forwarded the photos to herself, then deleted the messages from his sent folder. Over the next week, Zara began her investigation. She created a spreadsheet of their assets and liabilities, reviewed credit card statements, and searched for any documentation related to the mystery property. When Ethan left for a business dinner, she used his laptop and found he'd forgotten to log out of his email. That's when she discovered the second bank account for $137,000. Money she'd never known existed. Some of it appeared to be from bonuses he'd never mentioned, but a significant portion had been systematically moved from their joint accounts in amounts small, enough not to trigger her attention. Zara printed the statements, hands shaking with rage and shock. Present day. The rain fell harder as Zara sat at her kitchen island, reviewing everything she'd gathered over the past 6 months. The mysterious property belonged to a LLC that Ethan had formed 3 years ago. The woman's name was Vanessa Ellis, a former client turned colleague at his firm, and their money had been funding what appeared to be their future together. Her phone lit up with another text from Ethan, meeting running long. Might crash at the Westin downtown. Zara set the phone down without responding. She took another sip of wine and opened her email. The message from Marcus Chen, an old friend from her museum days who now directed a prestigious gallery in San Francisco, still filled her with a mixture of excitement and fear. Zara, the curator position is yours if you want it. The apartment nearby is available for rent starting next month. I have pulled every string I could. Don't make me regret it. This is the fresh start you mentioned. Let me know by Friday. Today was Wednesday. She glanced at the folder on her laptop labeled Escape Fund. Inside were detailed records of every incriminating document she'd found. Copies of withdrawals Ethan had made from their joint accounts. Photos of him and Vanessa. And most importantly, her plan. Over the past months, she'd opened her own account at a different bank. She'd been selling items from the house on high-end consignment artwork and antiques that Ethan rarely noticed, collected over years of their marriage. She'd reconnected with former colleagues, updated her resume, and quietly prepared for a life without him. But it wasn't enough. Not after what he'd done. Not after years of dimming her light to make his shine brighter. The next morning, Zara dressed with careful attention in a cream silk blouse and charcoal pencil skirt. She styled her dark hair in soft waves and applied makeup that accentuated her green eyes. She wanted to look her best for what came next. At 10:30 a.m., she arrived at Ethan's office building in downtown Seattle. She timed her visit perfectly. His weekly team meeting ended at 10:45. And he usually spent 15 minutes afterward chatting with colleagues. Before returning to his office, the receptionist brightened when she saw her. "Mrs. Morgan, this is a surprise. I thought I'd take Ethan to an early lunch." Zara smiled. "Is it okay if I wait in his office? I'd like to surprise him." "Of course. You know the way." Ethan's corner office offered a stunning view of Elliott Bay. Zara closed the door behind her and immediately went to his computer. As she'd hoped, it was unlocked. He never expected interruptions here in his sanctum. She inserted the thumb drive she prepared and quickly copied the files. She needed financial records, emails between him and Vanessa, documentation of the LLC that owned the lake house. As she worked, she glanced occasionally at the framed photos on his desk. Their wedding day, a vacation in Greece, the two of them at a charity gala last year. All artifacts of a life that had become a carefully constructed lie. The thumb drive finished copying. Zara removed it and slipped it into her purse just as she heard familiar voices approaching. She quickly moved to the visitor's chair and crossed her legs, arranging her face into a pleasant expression. Ethan froze in the doorway when he saw her, his colleague nearly bumping into him from behind. "Zara." He recovered quickly, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "This is unexpected. I thought we could have lunch." She smiled. "It's been too long since I've seen where my husband spends all his time." His colleague excused himself, and Ethan closed the door. "I have meetings all afternoon," he said. His tone clipped. "You should have called first. Like you call when you're not coming home." The words escaped before she could stop them. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? For a moment, Zara considered confronting him right there. But that wasn't the plan. "Nothing," she said. "I've just missed you. We hardly talk anymore." Something flickered across his face, guilt, perhaps, or merely annoyance at the inconvenience of her presence. "Things have been busy. You know that." "I know. Too busy for lunch today." He checked his watch. "I can do 30 minutes. Over salads at the overpriced restaurant in his building's lobby." Zara played her role perfectly, the supportive wife, interested in his work, laughing at his jokes. She asked about his clients and upcoming projects, storing away details she might need later. "I was thinking," she said as they finished their meals, "maybe we should plan a vacation. Just the two of us. Reconnect." Ethan looked surprised but pleased. "That sounds good. Where were you thinking?" "Maybe the San Juan Islands. It's been years since we went." Or she paused, watching him carefully. "Somewhere on Lake Washington. I've always loved the water." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. "We'll see," he said finally. "Let me check my schedule for the next few months." "Of course," Zara smiled, counting the lies. 2 weeks later, Zara's plan was ready. She'd accepted the position in San Francisco, secured the apartment, and made arrangements for her fresh start. Now it was time for the most crucial step. She'd chosen a Friday evening when she knew Ethan would be at the lake house with Vanessa. Their weekend patterns had become predictable over the last few months. At 7:30 p.m., she called him. "Hey," he answered, ambient noise in the background suggesting he was at a restaurant. "What's up?" "Ethan," she made her voice tremulous. "Someone broke in. The alarm company called. Police are on their way, but I'm scared to go in alone." "What? Are you okay?" His concern sounded genuine. "I'm fine. I was out with Leela, but I'm outside our house now. Can you come home?" A pause. She could almost see him calculating, making excuses to Vanessa. "I'm in the middle of a client dinner in Bellevue. It'll take me at least 40 minutes. Please hurry," she said. "I'll wait in the car until you get here." Zara ended the call and smiled. Bellevue was 15 minutes from the lake house, not 40. Another lie. Exactly 32 minutes later, Ethan's Audi pulled into their driveway. Zara watched from her car as he hurried toward her, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? Have the police been here? He asked as she got out to meet him. There was no break-in, Ethan. He stopped short. What? I needed to get you home. Zara's voice was calm. Let's go inside. We have things to discuss. Confusion turned to annoyance as he followed her into the house. You scared me half to death for a talk. What's so important it couldn't wait until later? In the living room, Zara gestured to the coffee table where she'd arranged everything in neat piles, bank statements, property records, photos, emails all printed and organized. $437,000, she said. That's how much you've been hiding from me. And that doesn't include the lake house or the vacations or the jewelry you've bought her. Ethan's face drained of color as he stared at the evidence of his betrayal, laid out like a museum exhibit. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, harder, colder. How did you get all this? Does it matter? Zara remained standing, arms crossed. What matters is that while you've been planning your new life with Vanessa, I've been planning mine too. He picked up one of the photos, him and Vanessa on the deck of the lake house. So what now? You want a divorce? Half of everything. His voice took on a calculating edge. You signed a prenup, Zara. And Washington is an at-fault state. Invasion of privacy? Computer fraud. My lawyers will have a field day with what you've done. Zara laughed. A sound so unexpected it made him flinch. I don't want half, Ethan. I want what's fair after 15 years of putting your career, your image, your life ahead of mine. She moved to the dining room table where her laptop was open. And as for your lawyers, they can certainly try. But first, they'd have to explain how you've been systematically hiding assets not just from your wife, but from the IRS. She turned the screen toward him. You've been operating that LLC as a tax shelter, writing off personal expenses as business deductions. The cabin, the boat, even Vanessa's consulting fees. It's all here. Ethan's expression shifted from shock to rage. You wouldn't dare. If I go down for tax fraud, you do too. Joint returns, remember? Actually, Zara said calmly, I've already consulted with a tax attorney. There's something called innocent spouse relief. Given that you deliberately concealed these activities from me, and that I can prove I had no knowledge or benefit from them, I'm protected. She smiled thinly. Interesting how the law sometimes works in favor of the person who didn't cheat. Ethan sank into a chair, the bravado draining from him. What do you want? I've prepared a separation agreement. It's quite reasonable, considering. She slid a document across to him. I get $300,000 less than what you've hidden from me. I keep my car and my personal belongings. You keep the house, your retirement accounts, and your precious lake house love nest. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the document. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, the IRS, your firm's ethics committee, and your parents receive copies of everything on that table. She let that sink in. Your father was managing partner at his firm for 30 years without a hint of scandal. Imagine his disappointment. The mention of his father, whose approval Ethan had sought his entire life, was the final twist of the knife. His face contorted with a mixture of hatred and defeat. You calculating bitch, he whispered. You've been planning this for months. I learned from the best. Zara's voice remained steady. You taught me that everyone has their price, Ethan. Yours just happened to be a blonde 20-something in a lake house. Mine is my freedom. He stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. I never thought you had this in you. That was your mistake. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. The silence between them stretched. Years of unspoken grievances hanging in the air. Finally, Ethan picked up a pen. I want one change. I'll give you the money, but I want a non-disclosure agreement. What happens between us stays between us. Your reputation is safe with me, Zara said. I have no interest in destroying you publicly. I just want out. As he signed the agreement, Zara felt neither triumph nor regret, only a profound relief that it was finally over. 1 year later, San Francisco Gallery buzzed with energy as patrons moved from piece to piece. At the opening of the new exhibition, as curator, Zara had brought together emerging artists from across the Pacific Northwest, many of whom she discovered during her years in Seattle. To the woman who made this happen, Marcus raised his champagne flute in a toast. The show is a triumph, Zara. The board is thrilled. Zara smiled, clinking her glass against his. At 39, she felt more vibrant and alive than she had in years. Her dark hair was shorter now, falling in soft waves just below her shoulders. The constant worry lines that had marked her forehead had smoothed, and her green eyes sparkled with purpose. "Thanks for taking a chance on me," she said. "Not many would hire someone with a decade-long gap in their resume. Anyone who knows art could see your eye never dulled," he replied. "You just needed the right canvas." Across the room, a familiar figure caught her attention, Leela, who had flown in for the opening. Excusing herself, Zara made her way through the crowd. "It's magnificent." Leela hugged her tightly. "And so are you. Seattle isn't the same without you. But I've never seen you so in your element. It feels right," Zara admitted. "For the first time in forever, I'm creating something that's truly mine." Later that night, after the crowds had dispersed and the caterers had packed up, Zara stayed behind to savor the quiet moment of achievement. She walked slowly through the gallery, appreciating each piece in the stillness. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender's name made her pause, Ethan Morgan. For a moment, her finger hovered over the delete button. Then, curiosity won out. "Zara, I saw the announcement about your exhibition in an art magazine. Congratulations. I'd like to say I'm surprised by your success, but that would be another lie, and I've told you enough of those. The divorce was finalized last month, as your lawyer probably informed you. Vanessa and I are no longer together. Turns out when the secrecy and the forbidden aspect were gone, so was most of the allure. I've been seeing a therapist. He's helping me understand what I destroyed and why. Too little, too late, I know. The lake house sold last week. I've enclosed a check for half the proceeds. It's not part of our agreement, but it feels right. Maybe it can fund your next adventure, whatever that may be. You were right about one thing. I stopped seeing you a long time ago. I see you now, for what it's worth." Zara read the email twice, a complex mix of emotions washing over her. There was a time when words like these might have weakened her resolve or reignited old feelings. Now, they simply felt like the closing of a chapter. She moved to the large windows overlooking the San Francisco skyline, lights twinkling against the night sky. In her reflection, she recognized a woman who had reclaimed herself piece by piece, her passion, her confidence, her future. The check would go to her new foundation, she decided, supporting women artists returning to their careers after interruption. Something good should come from those years. Her phone buzzed again with a text from Dr. Alex Rivera, the art historian she'd been seeing for the past 2 months. "Dinner tomorrow? I want to hear all about the opening." Zara smiled and texted back, "Absolutely. I have stories to tell." As she gathered her things to leave, Zara paused at the exhibition's centerpiece, a mixed media work by a young Seattle artist, depicting a woman stepping through an ornate gilded frame, leaving its confines behind. The piece was titled Reclamation. It had been the first work she'd selected for the show, and now it seemed like a perfect metaphor for her journey. Zara Morgan turned off the gallery lights and stepped out into the San Francisco night, carrying nothing but her keys, her phone, and the certainty that she had funded her own freedom, one careful plan at a time. The price had been high, But as she walked toward her apartment in the cool evening air, she knew without doubt it had been worth every penny.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.